An unexpected change to the UFC 213 main event didn't stop the interim middleweight title fight between Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero from turning into a 5-round instant classic. The two fighters were bumped up to the headline spot on Saturday and did not disappoint, with Romero storming out of the gate with a strong start before Whittaker powered back late to earn the victory and become interim champion. Related Dana White UFC 213 event recap nbsp talking points. Whittaker, Bisping, Romero and Pettis nbsp nbsPUFC minute recaps. Whittaker, Gaethje big wins on IFW weekend. Whittaker came back despite the knee injury that seemed to slow him down early, but the New Zealand native continued to apply pressure to Romero throughout the final 3 rounds while adding up the damage with a relentless striking attack when it was over. Whittaker's offensive onslaught earned him a well-deserved victory while odds makers were back and forth on the fight in the days leading up to UFC 213. 55% of fantasy players had picked Whittaker going into the card, and with the win he earned an extra 150-point bonus because it was a title fight in the co-main event. Alistair Overeem gutted out a tough 3rd round with former champion Fabricio Werdum to earn a unanimous decision win in this heavyweight showdown. Overeem was selected by 55% of fantasy players, although a whopping 73% had picked him to win by knockout going into the event. Still, Overeem came through with a victory while also earning an extra 120 points due to the close matchup with Werdum Order the UFC 213 replay. Now to witness Whittaker's historic victory run of favorites winning on the main card continued, with former lightweight champion Anthony Pettis earning the unanimous decision victory against Jim Miller. An overwhelming majority that 81% selected Pettis, with another 63% correctly predicting that he would win by decision, while the favorites ruled the main card. Aleksei Oleinik picked up a big win as an underdog on the prelims after he pulled off an impressive 2nd-round submission against Travis Browne. The 40-year-old Russian was selected by just 36% of fantasy players, although another 48% did pick him to win by submission as hereafter another finish. As it turned out, Oleinik was one of only 2 underdogs to get wins based on selections made by fantasy players. At UFC 213, Rob Font got the other underdog victory after he beat Douglas Silva didnt, with 45% of fantasy players picking him on Saturday night. Chadlock Price got a big TKO finish against Ryan Camertzi, with 69% of players picking him, while Thiago Santos was a massive favorite, with 80% of fantasy players correctly predicting his victory against Gerald Near. Scared People Muhammad was another favorite who got the job done with a unanimous decision win over Jordan Maine after 60% of fantasy players picked him to win. International Fight Week kicked off on Friday night with the Ultimate Fighter Redemption finale, where Justin Gaethje made a spectacular debut with a fight of the night performance against Michael Johnson. Gaethje and Johnson engaged in an absolute war, exchanging more than 190 strikes between them in less than 2 rounds after a back-and-forth battle that saw both men staggered and nearly finished. Gaethje found an opening to land a series of devastating knees that put Johnson down and out for good. Heading into the fight, Gaethje was actually a slight underdog based on the selections by fantasy players, with 43% picking him to win. Gaethje pulled off an impressive victory while also earning an extra 40 points for those who picked him thanks to the fight serving as his UFC debut. The upsets continued in the lightweight division on the main card as Drakkar Klose kept his undefeated record intact while handing highly touted prospect Mark Gaethje the first loss of his career. Klose was only selected by 12% of fantasy players going into the event, but it's safe to say he'll be a popular pick the next time he fights. Brad Tavares kept the underdog streak going with his win over Elias Theodorou in the middleweight matchup on the main card. Tavares was picked by just 30% of fantasy players, with another 61% correctly predicting that he would win the fight by decision on the preliminary card. Angela Hill got back on track with a unanimous decision win over Ashley Yoder, with 73% of fantasy players picking her in the fight. Meanwhile, CB Dollary got back in the win column with a hard-fought decision over Ed Herman after 72% of fantasy players selected him in the light heavyweight matchup. While the upsets were few and far between on the preliminary card, Gray Maynard certainly made a strong statement with his win against Teruto Ishihara in a lopsided victory for the former title challenger. Maynard was picked by just 37% of fantasy players, but he also earned an extra 120-point bonus because the fight with Ishihara was so close heading into Friday night. All told, Between the fights available to pick from UFC 213 and The Ultimate Fighter's finale, only 6 underdogs came away with victories, while an overwhelming majority of 14 favorites got wins during the 2 International Fight Week cards.